Hi there, I'm Danny Henderson. Welcome back to my beautiful disclosure channel. Now, you need to know that this particular broadcast is very emotional and very heavy. You need to have a graphic warning. Some of the content that you hear will be absolutely shocking. Please do not have your children in or around this broadcast. Please do not let your children hear the information that three of the women in particular on the screen have endured as little tiny baby girls. It delights me greatly to introduce you also to my beautiful friend, my co-host, Chantelle Meyburgh from Aquarius Rising Africa. Welcome, Chantelle.
Yay, thank you so much, Danny. It's so good to see you again. And I'm in Namibia at the moment, as you all know. I've been working here for the last couple of weeks. I'm still here for another week or two. Lovely to be here and lovely to be connecting with you all on the show tonight. Danny, thank you so much for the invite. And it's such a pleasure to see again Gloria, Rachel, and Cathy, who also I've chatted to quite a few times. Such a beautiful pleasure to have all you amazing, strong, beautiful healers all in one space. It really is amazing. So thank you, and it's a pleasure.
Thank you, Chantelle. And as you know, when I was bringing this broadcast together, which took quite a few weeks, and then we all are in different parts of the world. Gloria is in New Zealand, Rachel is in Australia, Cathy is in America, I'm in England, and you are in South Africa. And so it was a real effort to get us all together. And it's a beautiful thing. And again, guys watching, it's going to be emotional, potentially, because you're going to hear some information you may not have heard of before. People that have done terrible things to these little girls, now women who are so brave. They're angelic, they're strong, they're powerful, and they are here to help everyone heal as well as themselves and to bring truth to light. And as Cathy always says, to be the light they came to be. Now we're going to start with Cathy O'Brien. Those of you that don't know her, she's going to introduce herself and give you a synopsis of who she is. Cathy O'Brien.
Thank you. I'm so honored to be among so many brilliant minds and amazing spirits. People need to know how pervasive child sex trafficking is, how pervasive this satanic ritual abuse is. And this is an amazing opportunity for each one of us to bring a piece of the puzzle to the table. We've all had different experiences. That's the way it happens with abuse. Everyone doesn't have the same story. So here we are bringing all these different pieces of the puzzle to the table so that people who are tuning in here are going to be able to see a bigger picture and get the full view of what's going on. So this is just a wonderful opportunity to be able to, present my piece of the puzzle. Again, I've been doing that for over 35 years. I'm a survivor of CIA MK Ultra mind control on a White House Pentagon level. I was deep in the Washington, D.C. swamp among perpetrators who steal elections and fund their globalist slave society agenda with drug and human trafficking. What we're seeing isn't new. What's new is that we're seeing it. This child sex trafficking has been funding their agenda my whole life. It's also used for blackmail purposes, and I was used in blackmail ops all the way back in 1960. So again, this is a firmly rooted abuse of children. And now that we're seeing it, it's got to stop. I've waited a lifetime for this to happen, and people's eyes are finally opening up. In my case, I was born into a multi-generational incest-based family. My father was sexually and ritually abused. My mother was sexually abused and trafficked to my grandfather's Blue Masonic Lodge, where all the local politicians and law enforcement hung out. And by the time I was born, they were sexually abusing me right from birth. They were sexually abusing me before I could think to know that what my father was doing was wrong. But my brain knew That's what happens with all of us. Our brains have a defense mechanism where the neuron pathways actually shut down around the memory of the trauma and bury it deep into the subconscious so the rest of the mind can function and develop normally. This is a known process of our mind-brain function that we have a right to know and a need to know. It's our birthright information, but it's been suppressed under national security for generations now. Ever since the information on mind control was brought over into the United States through Project Paperclip, everyone can research that for themselves. We didn't win World War II. We transferred it over to the United States right after we brought in the formula for mind control, which is a scientific formula. And it is the same, whether it's of an individual, a nation, or the world. And trauma is the basis of it. It had been found through Hitler-Himmler research. There's no trauma more horrific on the human mind than sexual abuse of a child prior to age 5 while their brain is still forming. So the fact that I was being sexually abused from infancy meant that my neuron pathways were shutting down in my brain, which is exactly what these puppet masters, these perpetrators behind the mind control agenda want to happen. Because when they shut down the neuron pathways in the brain, we're more compliant and easily led. They're wanting a slave society agenda. They need people compliant. That's why the pedophile agenda is being pushed so hard, because that pedophile agenda is a mind control agenda. And mine began at birth before, I could even know there was anything wrong. My whole world was saturated in it. My father's sexual abuse extended into using me in child pornography. And that child pornography extended into trafficking me to my grandfather's Blue Masonic Lodge. So I was being prostituted to political leaders. It was being covertly filmed and then used as blackmail purposes. Because these people who are doing this to children don't trust each other either. So they hold each other by the blackmail, so to speak. That's why we have the Epstein Island and everybody knows their videos from there. Why we have the Diddy tapes coming out now. It's because that's what they do. They've been doing it my whole life. And I'm just so relieved for the children's sake and future generations that people are finally catching on to this. I wish they had known about it when I was little and before my father sold me into the project. But he sold me into the CIA's MK Ultra mind control when he was approached by a local politician that I'd been prostituted to since I was a little bitty toddler, who told my father he could receive immunity from prosecution if he would sell me into the project. So he sold me in. He received immunity from prosecution. We're already seeing where our so-called justice system has been corrupted to allow for the proliferation of pedophilia under so-called national security. This is secrecy. These secret societies, these secret lodges and these secret meetings that these global leaders, these self-appointed, self-anointed global leaders go to, have to stop. Because knowledge is our defense against mind control. It's truth that makes us free. We don't need secrecy. We need truth out there. And that's what compels me to speak out is love for humanity and to bring this information to light. Because if it's been going on my whole life, this is a structured, secret assault on humanity. And having been around these perpetrators, I know their greatest fear is the strength of the human spirit and the infinite power of love. They fear that we're going to remember that we have been blessed with all this power, that we have it within us. And we've been conditioned for generations to look outside ourselves to big government, big pharma, big tech, big cult to cult religion to tell us how to live our lives. When in fact, we've been blessed with it all along. We just forgot. So I'm also living proof that healing is possible. I know that their greatest fear is that we're all going to remember this and see exactly how long this corruption has been allowed to go on with our children being targeted so that they can control the future by controlling our precious, precious children and taking away their childhood innocence, taking away their birthright to live the love they are and to live and just live their life's purpose as life is intended to be lived. So once we know that what their agenda is and we understand the components of mind control, then we can safeguard our brains when trauma occurs, whether it happens on a global scale or happens to us individually. That's when we need to protect the sanctity of our free thought. Take some time for ourselves, get out in nature, and keep a balance. But as a little bitty child, I didn't know any better. All I knew is that my father's sexual abuse was extending to law enforcement. When he sold me into the project, it extended into the Catholic Church, where I was exposed to ritual abuse through Cardinal Law, who we can all find was head of the Catholic child abuse scandal and covering up the pedophile crimes against the children within the Catholic Church, because the Catholic orphanages have long since been used as a human trafficking, child sex trafficking operation and base. It's been going on my whole life. So I was thrust into that after. So, it seemed like the whole world was that way. I didn't know that good people even existed anymore. But I remember my last free thought being that I hoped there was some place in the world where people didn't hurt each other, that there was some place where people let the children play and laugh and just enjoy the innocence of childhood. I hope that existed somewhere. But in my world, it did not. My parents, my grandparents, my uncles, the law enforcement, the local law enforcement, local politician. The politician I'd been trafficked to was Gerald Ford, who went to become the unelected president of the United States. As his political career escalated, so too did my victimization and MK Ultra mind control. So I was seeing the saturation of this allowing for the sexual assault of children, the traumatization of children with satanic occult ritual. I didn't understand how that could be because it was so contrary to my being. And yet my church was involved, the politicians, law enforcement, family. It seemed the whole world was involved. And it wasn't until 30 years later that I realized that good people do exist in this world. And I am so overjoyed to wake up to that reality. A lot of people are having to wake up to the reality that we have been invaded by a dark negative energy force that has been manipulating our minds and lives and assaulting our children for a long time. Now that we're aware, it's up to us to make the positive difference.
Wow, Cathy, that is so, so powerful. Thank you so much. We will speak more on your experiences, and thank you for sharing and being so brave and being the warrior of light you are. I'll come round to Rachel, then Gloria, and then we'll come back to Shanti, because I know Shanti has her own questions too, my darling co-host of the evening. Rachel Vaughn, my love, in Australia there, early in the morning. Thank you for getting up for us. Could you please give us insight into, I know it's difficult to do a synopsis, very difficult, but could you please introduce those that may not know you and some of your background and your history in Australia, please?
Absolutely. Thanks, Danny, and thanks for bringing us all together. It's such an honor to be in this room, so to speak, with these amazing, amazing women. So I was brought up in South Australia, and they call it the land down under for a reason. So they've kept our population quite small because the MK Ultra programming here is also really intense. And much of what Cathy just said, I'm nodding my head because I went through very similar experiences. So I was also sold into the MK Ultra project in Australia in the 70s and 80s by my father, who was an ASIO operative, which is our equivalent of the CIA or MI6. He had immunity from prosecution. He also came from a Satanic bloodline. So the McIntyre family goes back to the Kennedys. My great-grandfather, my father's grandfather, was a Grand President of the Grand Lodge, very, very high up Freemason. And apparently my grandmother, my paternal grandmother, was head of the Eastern Star sect, which is the female version of Freemasonry. She had an OAM, she was Order of Australia Medal, which is similar to an OBE. So my family was very much considered, special. And my father really, truly had impunity from prosecution. My siblings and I have lost count of how many victims were involved. He was Australia's Epstein, in my opinion. I was satanically ritually abused. I saw horrific things done to other people's children, and horrific things were done to me as well. I've often called my father the body boy for the group in my country called the Family, who were running around just murdering children and leaving them out to be found. It was part of another form of MK Ultra programming, a terrorization campaign for the Australian people, because people couldn't let their children out anymore. One of the most famous cases that my father was involved in, and is a well-known suspect for, was the Beaumont children disappearance, which happened in 1966, where 3 children went missing all at the same time from the same family. I mean, this family lost all of their children. And that again was an operation, I believe, to control the Australian people and to terrorise. And it basically set my father up as well, so that he could have impunity forever. I believe he chose my mother to breed with because of certain physical traits and her psychic ability. She was also abused as a child. It's interesting because the Catholic religion as well, we weren't brought up Catholic, but my mother was brought up under a religion that gave her no voice whatsoever. So she was very well programmed before he even got hold of her. And her father had been electroshock abused and had gone to the Coral War and was really horrifically PTSD, severely affected. So I was also trafficked through a tunnel system, which I've proven the existence of. And I had to do that 2 years of research myself. I came out publicly about what happened to me as a child, and then I had to do this research to prove the existence of these tunnels, because I knew that is physical evidence and it's impossible to deny. And I spent 2 years, I had help from people all over the world to prove the existence of those tunnels and the bunkers that I was trafficked through as a child, that my father had access to because he was a telecommunications officer. And it was the telecommunications officer who had knowledge of all these telecommunications bunkers that were built in the Second World War, and that he utilised. The satanic ritual abuse, there was a huge number of people in Adelaide who were involved with that. I remember one particular ritual, there were 50 people involved where a baby was murdered, and it was just unbelievably horrific. But the individual who perpetrated that particular unaliving, sorry, Danny, I forgot to not use that word, he then became a very high up politician. There's a family member of mine who was a very high up politician in my state. And again, my father got to die having never been officially charged for what he's done. I have had a victim of crime compensation payment for the abuses that I suffered. And one in particular is highlighted in the payout. And it was a particular MO that was used in the unaliving of children in the family murders, specific to the autopsy results. I just happened to survive that. It was an internal injury caused by a sharp object. And yet they still haven't named him as the person who conducted those ritualistic murder unalivings. I think I've covered everything. Oh, medical experimentation as well. So again, those specific series of horrific unalivings involved other forms of medical experimentation, which I will not go into because it's too horrific for people to hear about. But some of it involved also using prions for experimentation. And that's also part of the thing that's happened to the world in the last 4 years, where everybody's pretty much had to have this thing put into them. That was all being studied and organised and worked out in Australia as well. So we have a very sick elite, I don't like to use that word, but a group of people who think they're at the higher echelons, who have been experimenting on the human population for a very long time. And another example of that is the Maralinga experiments, where they let off a nuclear bomb, intentionally allowing the fallout on a particular day where the wind would take the fallout over pasture land. They then pastured the cows on that, knowing that strontium-90 is concentrated in milk, and it comes into the grass more readily cows eat it. It's concentrated into the milk. And then they gave it to the children free because, you know, they cared about the children. But they were just experimenting on all of the children in schools at that time, giving them free milk. We have huge amounts of cancers in this country. That was studying the human population here for a very long time. One thing that Cathy was mentioning with the Catholic Church that I want to point out, I believe that the information gathering that now is very much centered around the Secret Service, I believe it began in the Catholic Church with confession. So, you know, this is how long these people have been studying and working out how to use people's secrets against them. And then, you know, when people weren't giving confession anymore, they had to do the Secret Service stuff a little bit more sort of wide ranging. But yeah, I mean, you've got people in this Zoom today that have all come from countries that where all of this stuff is how the world is run. This is how every single one of our countries is run, through blackmail operations and little children's bodies. And I agree with Cathy, you know, I believe we're coming into a time where that will not be able to happen anymore. People are awake to it, and there is just a shift energetically that I'm very aware of as a psychic, that it's just not going to be possible anymore. We actually have a great deal to look forward to. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Rachel Vaughan. Cathy O'Brien in America, Rachel Vaughan in Australia, and now we move across to Gloria Masters, who is in New Zealand. Hello, dear Gloria. Please can you share with us some of the experiences that you've had to endure at the hands of adults as a little girl?
Thank you. Hey, great to be in such esteemed company and very honoured. Thank you, Danny. Yes, so I was born and raised in New Zealand, which many people consider to be an iconic country, to be the most beautiful place in the world, although it's a very small country, to actually be a safe place. And my experience was anything but. So I was born into a family where child sex trafficking was the norm, child sexual abuse, satanic ritual abuse, child sexual abuse materials, having Freemasons do what they wanted to when they wanted to, was also on the table. And this was all at the hands of my father from infancy. And he was able to traffic me initially to extended family members and then family friends. But as I grew to 3 to 4 years of age, it became a lot worse. I was raised Catholic, which is where the Freemasons tended to live, and I would see the hand signal outside the Catholic church, outside the door, take place. So this was almost like a hunting ground for them, or a breeding ground for them. The conditioning that went on and the way that the Catholic Church runs its services is very ritualistic, and some of that was emulated and used in the satanic ceremonies I was forced into. A twist to my story is that I had a mother who was what I would call a wounded narcissist. She was so disinterested to me that my one sentiment growing older was that I was just in the way. So I never had love as a child. I never experienced any love. I had no safe adult I could ever turn to. But what I had, you see, was a light within. And I think that Cathy referred to that earlier. It's the light we have within rather than outside of us that shines the way ahead. But I digress. The second twist to the tale was that it was my grandmother, my paternal grandfather, who was tasked with training me, teaching me, and educating me on being the best child sex worker I could be. Now, she was tasked with it, but more than that, she was paid a commission. make sure you absorb that, please. There is an image of me as an 11-year-old with her standing behind me, and you can see what emanates from her towards me, and you can also see the highly sexualized poses that I was engaged in, just not normal and very evil. I believe this came down through the generations. My grandmother being able to look at a beautiful little child and think that was okay or acceptable, just showed me actually this was well known to her. I believe my father was also heavily used as a child as well. There was no love left or found or available to me. So what would happen is when I was asked to, or not asked, but told to perform in front of the cameras, it was the old, I'm trying to think of the name, it wasn't videos back then, but it was the old whirring, what do they call, projectors back then. I could hear the sound of that, but there was me on the stage with a group of pedophiles, and I would have to perform for them and on them, and then other children would be brought into that. The fact that this went on in suburban New Zealand just seemed to be a fact, and I know that many people to this day consider me to be a liar, consider me to be deluded. I get called all sorts of names, but the reality is it's just because I've healed, and I'm proud of that. So, you know, we talked earlier about off air about the type of comparative suffering I think that survivors do, and Rachel pointed out, and I agree, that it doesn't much matter what you experienced. Your trauma response will be the same as any of ours. It's either going to be fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And I think too that the horror I went through is still emerging, because 2 weeks ago I experienced some very real recall around what my brother and his friends chose to do, which was outside of the satanic ritual abuse ceremonies, but actually in my day-to-day life. So I didn't just have this happen at ceremonies with adults, with Freemasons, with Grand Masters, etc. No, these teenage boys made sure I went through it every day after school and all day during school holidays. So to say that I'm lucky to be alive is an understatement, and the fact that I can sit here and share this, knowing that it's truth, is also very, very big. And I'm in great company, and I know that this is becoming more and more apparent to the world that this stuff does exist. And so I'll finish with this. My one passion, apart from helping the beautiful survivors out there who have also experienced similar, is let's save some kids. And that's why I've written that book, Keeping Kids Safe. That's why the hand sign for under 16s is there. Please join with me, everybody. Let's save some kids. Thanks, Jenny.
Sorry. Thank you so much again. I did warn everybody watching this. This is going to be very heavy content and heavy lifting. And somebody in this world, in this screen right now, is somebody who I've watched on her own channel, Aquarius, Africa Rising. I always say it wrong. Africa Rising Aquarius. No, this is the dyslexia.
Aquarius Rising Africa.
You do so much heavy lifting, my love, and you've gone through your own experience of life. And may I come to you for your thoughts and any questions to these beloved ladies, my co-host.
Thank you so much. Yeah, of course, I always say it never gets easier hearing these stories ever. Um, but as I think we were also speaking about it off air a little bit earlier on, for me, it's so amazing because we were talking about the healers of the world, and it's now the time basically that we really need healing, not just surface stuff, but healing, true, deep spiritual healing. This kind of stuff, in my opinion, has been going on forever and a day since the dawning of time, that this has been going on. And I also think never before has there been so much attention drawn to this. So if we just think about 10 years ago, I mean, all three of you ladies, I mean, have been involved in whistleblowing of these high-level pedophiles for years and years and years and years. My heart breaks to think about the amount of torture and abuse that you would have gone through just for daring to try and speak your truth. So many other survivors have spoken about the same thing. If they dared to say something to anyone, they were like locked up and the abuse was intensified. So the path that you ladies have walked to bring this to our attention, I mean, is nothing short of superhero brave. I mean, I have no words. But it is truly, in my opinion, God works in very mysterious ways. I believe that only very strong souls can come through this and heal through it and be the healer of such atrocities. And what I see here is all of you, and I have to say, many more of my other survivors that I've been speaking to and have spoken to over the years. I have such respect. And I think that your stories are nothing short of shocking. And I will never understand how a man can hurt a child. I had a very gentle father. He was 6'6", known as a gentle giant. He loved children and he protected us with everything. And Cathy, you said something that you really wished there were good people and that there were people not and children who were protected. I was one of those children. And thank you for your prayer. Because I truly was protected as a child. And for me to see this, so often I don't have words. I don't have words to say. But I'm here in my heart and in my spirit. And for us to just share and share and share and just bring more and more children out of this dark place who are now adults in many ways. I see so many wounded survivors, who are trying their best, who still have mental health issues in such a bad way. And, I'm not even talking about people I speak to on air. I try and encourage as many people as what I can to come on to my show and to speak, but it's people that are in the audiences as well, viewers that watch, that have been through stuff as well, and that are gaining healing from these shows. So all I can say is just thank you for what you ladies and gentlemen out there have done for the survivor community. We have strong opposition. We being attacked on a daily basis in ways that I didn't even know were possible. I tell you that much. You know, I always call myself this farm girl from the ass end of Africa. It's like, I'm just like, what the hell is going on here? I've got to go and see what's got to be sorted out, right? So I come in blind. I have no idea what I'm doing most of the time, but my heart is there. And really, I honor you for the amazing work that you're doing. And I just look forward to more and more survivors stepping forward and telling their stories, because that truly is how we do heal from this.
It is indeed. Shanti, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so happy that you had a beautiful daddy, that you had a giant, beautiful man. And I know that these three ladies who didn't have that experience are happy for you, because that's one of the things as well. When something has happened to you in the way that these ladies have suffered, there isn't anything in them that resents another child growing up without having had a loving parent, because they never experienced it, but they have the empathy for other children. Cathy, I want to come to you on something that you raised earlier as we aim to help the beloveds that watch this, those that are going through their own healing, those that have suffered in similar ways. You know, maybe some that carry guilt and shame because it didn't happen to them, but we must let them know, like, they have to let that go. They have to let it go. We're all healing. We don't want to lessen our pain. But you mentioned your grandfather was involved in the Blue Masonic Lodge. Now, people get upset. We're not saying every Masonic, every Freemason is evil. That's ridiculous. But the Freemasonry cult was infiltrated, unbeknown to many. But you were unfortunately used in the dark infiltrated elements, and you mentioned the Blue Masonic Lodge. Please share with us, what does that mean?
The Blue Masonic Lodge was dedicated towards child sexual abuse more than any. And Blue movies used to be the name of the pornography back in the day of the reels, you know, like we were saying, then the on the child pornography. And so that was pretty much what that meant, but it was just referred to as that. I don't know if it goes all across the board, but they certainly knew what it was. It was the code that let them know that it was about the child pornography, the pedophilia, and the blackmail operations. So, you know, again, it was those in those blackmail operations. They don't trust each other either. But if they had each other by the blackmail, they would put them in positions of influence and power, which is why, you know, the Masonic lodges are notorious for having people in positions of influence within communities. So this particular one was dedicated to putting people in positions of influence that would further the pedophile mind control agenda.
Horrendous. Now, you were sold and trafficked to many very famous leaders in America. Some of them are still alive today. Some of them are still working and serving in the capacity they have been. Is there anything in particular that you would like to share in that regard? Because there are simply far too many very famous, well-known names to mention in one broadcast, sadly. But is there anything you would like to say about that?
But the only thing that the level of the political level of people did was give them a lot more influence over keeping me quiet and trying to shut me up, and it still didn't work. So, you know, if I can be exposing them, naming all those names like I did in my 1995 testimony for Congress, Transformation of America, none of us need to be afraid. And when I finally realized that these perpetrators feed off of negativity, they feed off of fear, trauma, hatred, division, and that's just it. They literally feed off it too, as we've heard with the adrenochrome situation. They're horrible in that regard, but that's their vibration. That's what they need. So they try to keep us all there. They fear the strength of the human spirit and the infinite power of love. That is the highest vibration. They can't reach it. They can't touch it. That would be akin to darkness creeping in on light. It doesn't work that way. Light exposes the secrets in the darkness, and darkness dissipates. And that is why we don't need to be afraid. All we need to do is shine that spotlight of truth. Be strong in who we are first. Know our own truth, absolutely. Be healed from within by writing out memory, opening those neuron pathways of the brain so that there's not little compartmentalized memories that can be triggered open. If they can be triggered, then a person can be misled, they can be hurt, they can be abused again. So we need to fully heal before speaking out. And then when we speak out, realize that we have all the power. They only have as much power as we give them or let them steal. If everything we do is out of love, rather than out of bitterness and hatred for them, because again, that's their vibration. If we live the love we are and speak out to empower others to stop the abuse and to be effective in reclaiming their own healing, then that is a high vibration. We have nothing to fear. And it's wonderful to have realized that no matter who these people are, when I expose people like the Bushes and the Clintons, those are notorious names for eliminating people, Clintons and suiciding. They made suiciding a word, and I still have absolutely no fear because they are such low vibration. And love always wins. Truth prevails, love wins. Love is the most powerful force in the universe. So as survivors heal and realize their own power, live the love they are, embrace the beauty of life, the way that it's intended to be lived. I mean, there's more to healing than just writing out the past. We need to move into the future in a way that is as life is intended to be lived, and embrace it and love it and enjoy. I am so grateful for every day that I am free to live the love I am and bring truth to light and experience this wonderful, wonderful world that we live in and get out in nature. It's so phenomenal. There's so much to be grateful for. When we reach a place like that, we are ready to emerge and help others. And until we reach that point, it's good to be gentle with ourselves and give ourselves time to reach that space, because it's so worth getting to. Nobody can beat us down when we're there. If we reach out too soon, then we could have others make it a rough ride along the way, but we don't need to do it that way. We just need to heal from within, remember who we are and why we're here, live the love we are, and realize that we have nothing to fear. Our abusers have everything to fear because we are exposing them. That's the ultimate justice.
Yeah.
That's so powerful, Cathy. Thank you. So, so powerful. And there's so many names in your book that are so incredibly shocking. For me, one of the worst ones was Reagan. I said to you, oh my God, don't tell me that Reagan is, a monster, because people are like me. I fell for the cool, suave movie star, gentle voice, and the projection with his, wife Nancy. And so the American people of the world, we were fooled in England too, that he's great family man and this great, yet behind the scenes are horrific horrors happening, and men sitting around chopping up the whole world and giving each other a section, a sector, a quadrant, a quarter. And that's literally what they do. The men mostly in power, from the time that you were this baby to a woman finally released with your life. You were told your life was going to be taken away from you by the time you were 30. I mean, your book it's the worst book I've ever read in my life. And many people, when I say that, they say it is the worst book I ever read. It shatters the illusion of the whole structure of the planet that we've been grown up with. And the names that you name, my God, my God. Shanti, did you want to say something, my love?
No, I'm good. I'm listening.
Okay.
It's all good. I actually just wanted, Cathy, one thing I was interested in asking you, or what you mentioned there, is as the President Ford, I think you're mentioning Ford. He was obviously one of your chief abusers, call it that. As you're saying, as he grew in power, so the abuse grew as well, right?
Yes.
That would obviously be a normal way, because I would imagine the reason for that is that as their power grows, the hunger for power grows at the same time, right? So as that as that despicable pedophilia, whatever it is they've been um, haunted with. I can't even think of another name because so is it like the monster that gets hungrier and hungrier? And really, at the end of the day, you as the child, because you would be the innocent, right, would then they would be feeding off your innocence. Would that be an sort of quite an accurate way of describing why the abuse would often intensify when they get
Yes,
more powerful?
yes, and it's the sexual abuse of a child isn't about a sexual preference or a perversion in that
Mm,
regard anyway. It's a power over the child, and it could be a victim living out their own trauma and inflicting it, you know. But when you get the political positions of power, then he'd be blackmailing more and more people to maintain that position of power and on and
yeah,
on and on. So then I
right.
was prostituted more and more. By the time it got to his presidential cabinet, we had the George Bush, head of the CIA. We had Dick Cheney, Donald Rumsfeld, who tainted our food with aspartame and dumbed us all down with that artificial sweetener. You know, he had Henry Kissinger. Together, they wrote the first depopulation agenda. This is public record, every bit of this.
Right.
He had Nelson Rockefeller. We're seeing the same names over and over again.
Yeah.
We should be encouraged by that because it isn't that there's so many people, it's a small handful. And it's the same ones over and over and over again. And they're using blackmail to expand their layers of control so that they can affect more people. And
Right.
so when we get rid of this pedophile blackmail operation, when we understand that there's only a handful of these puppet masters, follow the money, it'll go straight to them every time, you know, then we realize how absolutely inexcusable it is that we allow them to manipulate our brilliant minds and lives anymore. And above all, to manipulate our children. It's time for us to all effectively protect our children. It's going to take healing first, facing reality of what in the world is going on. We all need to expand our thinking so that we can understand about mind control, protect ourselves going forward, and above all, protect our children. So it's a wonderful opportunity for all of us. And their power, they got so greedy for it. They just showed us all. They tipped their hand. We all see.
Absolutely. So true. Rachel, I would like to find out from you as well in terms of the payouts from the government. I know you've been very a trailblazer in terms of getting the governments to pay out compensation for damages basically caused. Maybe you can share a little bit more about that and you can tell us more about that because that is a real, I mean, especially for Australia, that is a great step forward, yeah?
It is, absolutely. Yeah. So I just to clarify, 3 of my father's very close friends are all convicted pedophiles. One's a chief inspector of police, and he abused me as a child, but he was protected by authorities for a good 30 years before he was finally convicted. So I spent 18 years going to police, giving statements. I have 2 siblings that went through the same abuse. They went and did their own statements. 18 years we went through that. And eventually, finally, they've compensated me. They had to. I had medical documentation from a professor of proctology to prove the physical permanent injuries that were perpetrated on me as a child, which could only have been caused by the introduction of a sharp object to a part of my body that should never have a sharp object in it, which again was part of the MO for the family murders, which again just absolutely blows my mind that they still haven't said, as I've been telling them since 2006, that my father was the body boy for those murders. He left the bodies out to be found. That was part of his MO. He was pissed because he never got a title. So yeah, finally, and I had to go to every single authority over police in my state, over 20 different departments, because over that period of time, different police ministers came in. So I had to go to different police minister. They'd stopped having the police complaints authority. They had to change that because it was disbanded because it was so corrupt, and change it into the police ombudsman's office. Well, the police complaints officer that was handling me during the time I was complaining there then got shifted to the police ombudsman's office and still handled my allegations. In fact, I rang up one day and said, why is the police ombudsman not responding to my allegations? And the woman on the line said, I'll send it through to the officer that's handling it. And this officer answered, and it was the same guy. It's just they just ship them around from one place to the next to the next. And Wayne, I still remember you and I still know your name, and I will still make sure that you come to some sort of justice in this lifetime, in the right ways, in the proper formal ways.
Do you think, I want to just ask you there, do you think that a lot of these guys that are currently handling these situations, because I know in Australia this is quite new still, it's right. So do you think they are involved? Because I know Australia, there's a lot of involvement with all sorts of shenanigans. Or maybe there's guys like that covering for them. They know what's going on, but they might not be involved. This is kind of like what I'm thinking where we're at the moment is like, are there people actually covering for those who they know are committing these atrocities and in fact, or have committed them, and in fact continue to do so? So
with that particular individual that I just mentioned, 100%, he was quite demonic with me over the phone in 2012 and repeated the same statement 3 times, which is a Freemasonic ritual. So that in that case, yes. I think there are some that are just stupid and they'll just do, or they're just complicit. They just will do what they're told because they're getting paid, which is horrific. I've seen this in the medical industry in the last 4 years, that people just keep doing what they're told, even though they know the damage being caused. So there's variations. Look, all of the Western world is mind controlled. So, you have to break the mind control before people will actually step up and say, I won't do that anymore. And it's
so true.
Purses are controlled, we're controlled in so many different ways.
It's so true. It's so true. Wow. Goodness me. Well, good luck with that. And I know you're doing a lot of good there in Oz with this ground you're breaking there. So I think that's, when it starts cracking open like this, it's just the beginning. The momentum is just starting to happen now. So I think there'll be lots of very happy Australians. Thank you, Rachel.
Amazing. Gloria, you've mentioned several times that as a child of this the worst harm that anyone could do to children, you were used in many videos or films. I know that we are treated like imbeciles on the YouTube algorithms, and so we have to use the word like cornography. But also Cathy was also the same way used, and Rachel too. Gloria, what do you think will come to pass as the curtains are being yanked down, as all of the perpetrators in their high positions on the planet, in government, in policies, in education, in science, in the military? There is not one system on this planet that has not been infiltrated in some way, with either the ones that harm the little ones, the warlocks, the witches. People laugh and they mock because we've been controlled to mock at that. We've been controlled to laugh at the ETs and the aliens. We've been controlled to think only what we're fed. And we know it's lies. And now we're all standing strong and saying, knock it off. We've had enough. Be quiet, sit down. If you can't bring the truth, we're going to bring the truth. In terms of you, Gloria Masters in New Zealand, used in videos for gang members. Now let's bring in the gangs. And let's bring in how filthy and corrupt and dirty and also pedophilic they are, because you were used and filmed in gang initiations, the new blooding. Can you tell us a bit about that, please, and what your thoughts are to the end or the exposition of that?
Yeah, so look, I was exposed to gangs, and I just want to qualify, gangs aren't led by heavily tattooed Indigenous people within a country. That's a myth. The people who lead the gangs are at the top of the tree in any particular system, whether it is political, whether it is commercial, it doesn't much matter. But these are people of influence walking around in three-piece suits. So I just want to get that out there. Yes, unfortunately, due to the Masonic relationship and ties my family had, gangs were a natural part of that. And in New Zealand at the time, we had 3 different gangs, and I won't name the gang that did what they did to me because they're still very much in existence today. But I will say that one very clear memory I had was being taken to a gang house headquarters in Auckland, and my father exchanging words with the gang leader and saying, "I'll pick her up tomorrow morning." So I was brought in, and I was 11 years old. I was terrified, and I was taken out to the backyard, and there they had some barrels that were standing up, and they had a sheet of wood across the barrels, but it was enough for a child of my size to be laid out across. And I think, again, severe trigger warning. But what they did was they spread eagled me out on that table, and they tied my hands and feet so I couldn't move. And the person that was being initiated into the gang, a newly blooded young man, was required to hurt me as well as rape me. Basically, I was there so he could do whatever he wanted to do with everyone watching. And he decided to do just that. So, I don't need to go into graphic detail, but I'm a small, underweight, malnourished 11-year-old child with a grown man who's probably triple or more my body weight. And he's deciding to smash me over pretty much. Now, because I'm tied up, clearly I've got no way of protecting or defending, but there were many men and some women who stood around and watched all of that. Once he had finished, others behind him could do that as well. So by the time the next morning arrived, my father arrived. I was unconscious, lying on the ground somewhere, still naked. But my father arrived, took one look at me. My face was unrecognizable, black and blue, swollen. And I heard him say to the gang leader, "Hey, you want to be careful of what you do to her, mate." And I'm thinking, oh, my father might actually advocate or stand up and protect me for the very first time. But no. And he said, "Because she won't look as good for you next time." So that's what happened. And yes, so it's very, look, I'd love to say I don't think things like that go on, but unfortunately I believe they do.
They do. And you mentioned the prison industrial complex, which we must focus on as a humanity, because as you rightly said, it isn't the gangs that are really running on the inside. They're part of a bigger operation, and it is run and organized by these great men in parliament and government in America. It is run as a business. Look how many Black American men are arrested for smoking weed. Come on. It is deliberate. It is absolutely deliberate. All of it is a systemized takedown of a loving, successful humanity. And it's taken us like until a time such as this to shine the light on all of it. My objective, my agenda, my desire is that people stop separating everything. It's all together. We're taking down the scummery, the one-celled amoebas, the real retarded brains, the men who thought they could carve up the world, and they did for a while, but because ultimately they are failures in a society that can sustain and will rise and does rise through love, they failed. And now we know them all, and we're coming for you. We're coming for you, fuckers. Know it. Know what time it is. And you know what else is happening, which is so clear, my darling friends? It's the women. It's us. Be very afraid, little boys. Be very afraid. Who would like to share something?
I was going to ask you, Gloria, about the gangs as well, in terms of just the connection to the governments, because, we see in the movies a lot type thing, it's the Hell's Angels or whatever it is, the popular ones are, and you kind of get to see what goes on there. But it would make sense to me that the gangs are always connected to the much higher ups, because they would often run their goods for them, right? And not just in terms of their drugs or their guns, as we see, but most definitely, I think that would have a lot to do with the child trafficking as well, right?
And look, I do want to say, because I think it's really important, and just let me say this statement, please. I look, the people who are leading this and perpetrating this are evil. There's no other word for it. By far the bigger group, the group that really, really concern me, and the reason this continues, is because these are the enablers.
Mm.
They know something's happening. They sense something, they may see something, they may hear something, and they do nothing.
Yeah.
As we know, quote by Edmund Burke, all it takes for evil to exist is for good people to do nothing. So
Exactly.
yes, we can look at how the world has been run, the evil that is perpetrated to today, the silence and the shame that is put on all of us as survivors. It is well known to us. But by far the bigger group, the group I keep trying to target, are the ones that know something, the enablers, because we're not here to protect children and protect them from what is currently happening. I'm sorry, but what are we here for?
So true. It's so true. And it's so true what you're saying about the enablers, you're going to get those. And the worst is the ones that keep quiet, right? If there's a parent that's involved and just allows it to happen. But there again, we're also learning more and more that, especially in the ancestral ritual families type thing, where abuse occurs ancestrally, invariably there's some kind of sorcery and witchcraft going on, no doubt, where often there's hypnosis and drugging, literally stuff like that goes on. But it's when, for me, when you explained about how they spread eagle to you, for me to imagine that there were men and women watching this and not saying a word and just allowing this to happen. I mean, I would have grabbed someone's gun and shot all over. Like, I would have shot the roof. I would have done something, you know. But as you're saying, Cathy, it's just that vibration, it's that negative inverted vibration where these monsters, that's what they thrive off. They thrive off exactly the opposite of what we thrive off. We thrive off love, peace, connection, harmony, healing. That's what we enjoy, right? And that other stuff is absolutely indigestible to us. But it's about, I think, definitely learning how to flip the script and educating people. The more people who know, and it's still so true, I find it again as a healer. People get offended when I speak about certain things. I'm like in the survivor community, but I haven't experienced that, right? But by the same token, with my friends and often family, I'm like this completely over the top conspiracy theorist who every time I start speaking about things, you can see these uncomfortable looks. And then I get told not to burst people's bubbles. Literally, I'm told not to burst bubbles. I'm like, babe, I'm here to burst your bubble. That's what I do. Sorry. That's just me. Right? So, but it's amazing how many people are still resisting that, actually. Although when we sit on these platforms, we kind of think, yeah, well, everyone knows about what we're talking about. But no, I'm afraid not. There's still quite a bit of work ahead to create awareness and to bring these communities together and for people to hear these stories. They are never easy to listen to. And that, I think, is what most people shy away from. They just cannot imagine things like this happening. And I love, what's coming out now with the Menendez brothers, because when they killed their parents, in 1991, and all these abuse stories came out, and we're hearing now the amount of abuse that went on with those two boys. And I was listening to one of the ladies who was a juror in the first trial when there was a mistrial, and she said all the women voted for the boys, that it wasn't first-degree murder. I don't know what the other charge was, but all the men voted first-degree murder. They could not imagine having that happen to them from their fathers or doing that to their sons. So it was such a big thing that it was, well, they just did this for the money. But now we're hearing, as these stories are coming up from other survivors as well, they're starting to be believed now as well. And I just think that's amazing, that all of this is coming up now. And more people are getting to hear the truth and the underbelly of the world. And I always say, we can't heal that which we don't acknowledge. If we don't acknowledge it, we can't heal it. We have to acknowledge it and clean it and heal it. So I'm always grateful when we have conversations like this.
Cathy O'Brien, I saw your documentary years ago with you and your beloved husband, Mark Phillips. And I was working in TV in England, and I saw the documentary where he spoke about he was in higher intelligence and he knew about you and your baby girl being trafficked to a ventriloquist whose name I forget right now, not important. And I was so struck by your story, and it stayed with me all these years until I actually found you and now call you my darling friend. I couldn't get over the way your testimony bled through everything, and that you were this mind-controlled sex mule used for spying, used for passing information in the American government, these disgusting pigs, these filth, these disgusting leaders that still exist today would put little bits of the Wizard of Oz commentary into your mind, and then you would be passed to the next man who would do whatever he wanted, Cheney, and on and on and on. And they would even take great pleasure in you electrocuting yourself. If they weren't of a mind to electrocute your beautiful body, you would have to do it yourself. This is the level of horror that these three women have gone through in government, politics, the highest echelons of the world, that you guys think you should look at your leaders and your authorities. Enough now. Enough. Cathy O'Brien, the breakthrough for you was your beautiful husband knowing about you and your baby girl. He couldn't have it on his conscience. He came and he rescued you. He rescued you. And somehow through that healing, the love that was always in you, that wasn't killed by those pedophiles that harmed you, it raised up and it raised out. It's just such a remarkable, remarkable testimony. Can you share some of that with us, please?
I'm so fortunate to have survived my MK Ultra experience, especially on the level that I was being used. It's amazing I survived it. But it never occurred to them that somebody like Mark Phillips would use information, secret information on mind control to free a mind rather than control one. They didn't grasp that. They don't grasp human goodness. They don't understand that. They don't understand the strength of the human spirit. They've underestimated us all. Right now, the whole world is going through a massive, great awakening transition, waking up to say no to this handful of self-appointed, self-anointed global puppet leaders that we didn't elect, that are using authority over our governments, who are using authority. And so the whole thing goes. It's just so many people are waking up now and saying no more. It's just like the whole generational aspect. It's like no more. And there have been so many good people at the top, like Mark Phillips, who have been dedicated to preserving the sanctity of free thought. How fortunate for me that he chose my daughter and me to lift us out of the Washington, D.C. human trafficking swamp and hand me keys to my own mind. Those keys that he handed me, people say, well, I need a deprogrammer like Mark. And it's like, well, Mark reminded me that it's within us all to heal. He reminded me of my birthright strength of spirit. He reminded me of the resiliency of our body, mind, and spirit that we all have. The information, our birthright information, has been buried under national security for generations. Mark also worked in genetics, where he understood that after 3 generations, any knowledge base, abuse base, or belief system becomes autogenic in the brain. It's passed down generationally. It's how information is passed down. It's why there are generations now that can be triggered into violent activity, or these gangs can be used to further traumatize, or that this pedophile agenda could be allowed to get to the place that it has now. It's because of the generational aspect. He also understood that after so many generations of our birthright information being suppressed and kept from us, that we forget that information is not passed down anymore. Well, all that's changing, because all we need to do is remember who we are and why we're here. All of us do. And he knew that. So what Mark reminded me was something of a profoundly spiritual nature, rather than one of mental health exercise. And it's so easy for all of us to access that healing that we have within us through the simple methods that Mark taught me. They're detailed in PTSD, Time to Heal. The same methods he told me. It's a very thin little workbook, because it's birthright information. It just reminds us, that we can pick up a pen and paper and write out our trauma, write out our fear, write out our memory, write out anything that's holding us back. And what that does is it opens neuron pathways in the brain by taking information, shifting it over to logic, because it takes that part of the brain to move a pen. Typing doesn't do the same thing. It's moving a pen. So it shifts it over to logic where it can be critically analyzed and consciously seen in front of us. All of a sudden, healing's happening on all levels because the neuron pathways are opening up. Like I said earlier, mind control is about shutting neuron pathways down to leave us more suggestible and easily led. Well, this little trick, this little brain trick we all can use, opens neuron pathways. If we put writing by hand back in the school system, it will stop the indoctrination of our children. They'll learn how to think again instead of be taught what to think. You know, so we've got such an opportunity in front of us. And this is what Mark reminded me. And I'm so fortunate that he did. And as I healed and I began remembering all those things I'd been tortured to forget, so many government secrets and personal reputations were staked on their belief that I couldn't heal. And they were wrong. And as I began healing, it shifted their paradigm. They got scared. It's like, okay, she's talking. You know, this is scary. People can heal. And again, they just don't consider the strength of the human spirit and the infinite power of love because they can't relate to it. They're too low vibration to grasp it. They can't stretch so high to grasp the wonder and miracle of that aspect where our healing resiliency is. So as I healed and began writing that out, I told Mark, I can't live with myself after what I was forced to do. And he said that I'm not responsible for what I was tortured to do under mind control. My abusers are. They need to be held accountable for that. But now that I am aware, I am responsible for all my actions going forward. And I thought, that is so amazing to be responsible, the ability to respond, you know, the ability to choose how I was going to live my life, to make sure that everything I did was true to soul, in harmony with my life's purpose. It was like having a blank slate and all the beautiful insight to be able to live life the way it's intended to be lived. And it was such a celebration on that. And yet I still didn't love myself because all the daily affirmations in the world weren't making me love myself after what I knew and what I had experienced and what I'd been forced to participate in, and especially that I hadn't even been able to protect my own child. I couldn't deal with that. How was I going to love myself? And Mark was so amazing. He was so wise and loving and gentle, and we were safe. And animals loved him. He was such a good vibration. He was just such an amazing person. I was so in love with him, but he wouldn't have anything to do with me. He said, you have to heal first. You have to know who you are in order to have something to give in a relationship. So as I was trying to love myself and even know who myself was, I went to the base core energy of my being. And I found that energy is love. That energy is the most powerful force in the universe. It's the strength of the human spirit. It's who we are. And with that knowing, I realized, oh, I can just live the love I am. I don't have to love myself from the outside. And I just live the love I am. And what a celebration that became. And Mark and I fell in love at that point, and it was just a beautiful love story from that point forward. But it's important too, I think, for all of us to realize that when we remember who we are and why we're here, we find that to be such a beautiful, pure energy, such a beautiful, pure source of infinite strength and love. The purity of it is childish. It's who we are when we're children, when we have our birthright knowledge, when we're born. It's that innocence, it's the laughter, it's all of that. It's still within us. It's the energy of who we are. And energy can neither be created nor destroyed. It's already who we are. It's the essence of our humanity. So when we live that, we have the childlike ability within us again. When we all nurture that inner child, we're allowing for the purity of that love and that infinite strength of spirit to shine through. It's such an amazing realization that we all can heal no matter what we've endured. we still have the capacity for innocence. We still have the capacity to live the love we are, to live our life the way that it was intended to be lived. We can do it today. We can do it now. And it's so exciting to be able to realize that, because we all can heal. Even the little children who are coming out now, who are being found, and they can heal too. It's within us all. We've been blessed with it all along. And that word needs to get out there. That word needs to be spread, because ultimately this is a spiritual evolution. This is our time to shine, and it's our time to be able to make a difference right where we are, just like Mark Phillips did when he decided to rescue my daughter and me. He was living that love that he is in light of his life's purpose, and it's what we're all encouraged to do. So how fortunate for me that he rescued me, and how beautiful for us all that Mark Phillips gave us all the gift of remembering who we are and why we're here through a few simple steps in PTSD Time to Heal.
Wow. Honestly, you girls, I mean, you, Cathy, just the strongest person I've ever met. And it's so beautiful. And these are like happy and sad tears to see you just have the strength to talk about the love that was in you after what you went through. I'm sorry. I always bloody cry when I get with you girls. I just can't bear it. Nobody watching can bear it. We can't believe that you were treated the way you were, but we have to bring you forward, because there are children now, adults who've gone through the same. There are children now going through the same on many levels. And yet, Cathy, what you bring is this power that no matter how crushed, how mind controlled, how beaten, how enslaved you were, Cathy, that spark wasn't killed in you. And that's just something so incredible to behold and to hold on to. The human spirit is the strongest. We are so resilient. We are so magnificent. And I love for you that you had a love, a great love in your life, because so many people never experience that. And you had that with your beloved Mark. And I'm so happy for you. Talking of love again, how love can help you overcome a horror, guys. Again, a little bit more heavy lifting to go. Rachel Vaughn, as a little girl in her horrendous, horrific, abusive, murderous childhood, witnessed the unaliving of 3 children. They were called the Beaumonts. You mentioned them earlier. Please tell us how you were able to be involved, not involved, you were there while these children were being taken unalived. How did you survive it? And what is the love in you that won't let that go, that keeps shining that light out there for those 3 children?
So I am a spokesperson for them, but I wasn't actually alive when they were taken. So that was actually my 2 sisters were shown, and my brother was there on the day. They disappeared in 66. I was born in 73. My father made both of my sisters look at the deceased children in the boot of the car, and he's admitted to that on camera. I mean, that's a fact. He's admitted to it. And that's been out. That footage has been out for a long time, but still he's not been charged, even though he's dead now. And the police say, you can't convict a corpse. So they just wanted to just disappear. The children that I saw murdered were a little boy in a ritual, another boy in another ritual that I don't talk about publicly very often. There are a lot of very high up members of Channel 9 involved, which I was also used in child rape material at Channel 9 Studios, one of the main television studios here in Australia. Tracy Louise Bell, I watched her murder. That was unbelievably horrific. And there was an aspect of that involved what I talked about before with the Maralinga experiments. Cadavers, the right leg of cadavers was sent off to the UK for study after the experiments, because they were trying to, the strontium-90 gets, I think, placed in particular parts of the body, and that was part of the experimentation, was they were sending off, and people didn't give the authorities the right to take part of their deceased loved one and send it off for experimentation. And Frank Walker talks about that in his book, Maralinga. It just gives you a bit of an idea of how dodgy South Australia is. The reason that I keep speaking about this is I know with every survivor that speaks up, it is another sign to those who've done the controlling, whether it's MK Ultra programming or it's simply, a pedophile telling a child, if you speak up, I'll kill you, I'll kill your parents, I'll kill your pets, siblings, whatever threats they give. We are proof that mind control doesn't work. It's fallible. And they realize that now. There are so many of us speaking out. They realize that what they put into place is absolutely fallible and it doesn't work, even if it's done under hypnosis. The worst torturous conditions, it is falling apart, completely crumbling. And that is also an aspect of the paradigm that we're living in at the moment. If we look at things from a soul perspective, we are living in a time where all of this was always going to come out. All this truth was always going to come out. They knew that. They also follow astrology. They knew that these 4 years of absolute truth were coming out, started in November last year. Look where we're at the moment. So, that's why I keep speaking out. I get a particular joy out of doing it, knowing that every time I speak out, and I've done over 100 public speaking engagements now. Every time I do it, I know that those who abuse me recognize that they're pretty useless. They've done a really bad job. And on the evidence, I'm the proof of it. It's also because I know children are still being abused. And if we don't speak out about it, those children will never have a voice. I used to sit trapped in a tunnel underground, very small space as a very small child, wishing and praying someone would come and rescue me. And I had angelic beings would come in and actually communicate with me at that time, telling me that I needed to hang on because there was something I was going to do as an adult that was profound and would make it worth surviving. And that's, again, another reason why I speak out, because of those experiences. And if you speak to survivors who have a spiritual element to them, if that hasn't been, programmed out of them, they'll say very similar things, that they had these profound experiences, profound spiritual experiences that helped them to keep going. Yeah.
Incredible, absolutely incredible. Gloria, what is it in you, my love? A little girl that from, again, birth, all you knew was hardship, pain, and the most harmful things. And something in you to this day fights for every child in every school on the planet. You wrote a book, Keeping Kids Safe. You work on the hand signal, keeping kids safe. You want every person that has children in school, grandparents, parents, to get this book, Keeping Kids Safe. And just to say also, this is a beautiful story before we come to your answer. So many people watch my channel, as they do Shanti's. And, I hope and I pray that there are good people out there that can help a lot of the people that I bring on. I bring them on for many different reasons, for truth to be out there, for the light to be out there. And this lady came forward, and she herself comes from a horrendous, satanic, awful Illuminati bloodline family. And she approached me at my last conference, JISIG, just a month ago in September 2024. And I won't name her, I will just say we call her Lady E. And Lady E said, I have an ability to donate. And I watch the people on your channel, and I love what Gloria Masters does for the children. And so she kindly gifted Gloria Masters a donation so Gloria can buy some books to put into schools, to every school, as much as she's able to. There are other children that I play with and bring to light, the children in Uganda, a little tiny little slum village, disgusting slum village. If these children, any of them, 4 of them, get an education in music, they have a chance in life. I've been working with them since 2018. A lot of you have donated to these kids. Thank you. And this Lady E donated an amount that will allow them to actually build their little tiny music school. So these kids have. So there are such good people out there with love that don't need to be in front of the camera, that are just doing their due. And I thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for who you be, and in your recovery also doing good. So Gloria, back to my question for you. What is it in you that propels you? You could just shut down, you could just do nothing. Why do you still fight for the children every day?
Because I never want one child to have to experience anything like I did. And I believe that I'm here on the planet for the purpose of helping to save kids. It's too late for me and my other beautiful survivors on the platform, but it's never too late to start observing what children are so desperately trying to show us. And I think I've been grateful to have come full circle because I know enough about children and have studied enough about children and what they go through to understand that they don't actually use words. That's for us as adults. But what they do is they show us through their interactions with others, through their play, and through their body language. And if all we could do is good adults, as safe adults, is start to observe the signs, switch off the words and notice the behavior, we would be able to save some kids. So it's very big in me, you see, that this evil ends. And I know I'm in a unique position to share information and educate. So that's what I'm trying to do. And your lady E, big shout out to her. Because of her, there's so much more we can do and so many more safe adults we can reach. Because this isn't for the children to have to do one thing. This is for the adults around, all of us. If not you, then who? To step up. It was Nelson Mandela actually that famously said, the culture of a country is determined by the way it treats its children. So come on, world, step up. That's why I do what I do.
Shanti.
I so agree, Gloria, with what you're saying there as well. You know, I recall Gandhi saying something about we can judge a nation by the way on which it treats its animals, and I think you know, animals, children, I think are one and the same, really, and it's so true. You know, when we start taking care. You know, we also grew up in a culture where kids are seen and not heard type thing. You know, kids were little pests, and those days are over, you know, when I think that just the preciousness, the innocence that is preserved through taking care of the innocent. There's such beautiful karma. And, you know, karma really is cause and effect. It's got nothing to do with, well, you treated Johnny badly today, so Lady Karma is going to come whip you tomorrow. Not at all. It's really about what we're putting in and what we get out of putting in. And it's not a selfish thing. It's you are of service to others. So when we serve others, and especially the innocents, I think there's great joy to be derived from that, and great blessings to be received from that as well. You know, so I think it's such an important thing that you're doing, and especially with the kids, you know, really teaching them the hand symbols. That's so cool, actually. I've actually seen that, by the way. I've seen quite a few like stuff on YouTube and stuff. Yeah, I have, and it's really amazing. So it's wonderful that the word that the word is getting out, and people are starting to believe. You know, I hear from every survivor, the most important thing you can say to a survivor is, "I believe you," and the time has come to believe our survivors, to believe them. Too much has happened beneath the surfaces of our earth. You know, we talk about the Catholic Church a lot. The Catholic Church is, and the Mormon Church, actually. There's so much stuff going on about the Mormon Church as well. Are really two of the pillars of the Illuminati. So when we can realize that what happens beneath the surface of the churches, Jessie Zaboto does a lot of decodes on the way the buildings, the churches are constructed. She's very good with sort of decoding that stuff. And I think it's so important to also listen to some of those interviews where you can actually see that building with that structure really means that. You kind of know what the symbolism is, who they doing sacrifices to, what's happening beneath, what's happening above. It's amazing, they're telling us stuff in our faces all the time, and they have been for a very long time. We really have to learn that language. We have to learn the language of their symbolism and how they speak, etc. It's really that simple, because if we understand what it is they're saying, we know how to respond accordingly as well. Not many of us want to get hauled into some satanic cult unknowingly, and that's oftentimes what happens as well. So it's about educating ourselves. And the more of us and really there is no excuse anymore. There really is no excuse anymore for people not to educate themselves about this. If we're looking at stuff like P. Diddy, who, yes, I also understand on some level, there's some kind of a controlled something going on there. They're letting those dominoes fall in the way they want to right now. And that's okay. That's actually okay, as long as the world is starting to see what's going on. We're seeing these musos are pedophiles, but we're not seeing the satanic stuff that happens behind that. In fact, that's why it happens. So the layers are coming off, and I think more and more people will start recognizing the truth. And I pray for truth, I want truth. The truth must come out. So yeah, thank you.
Amazing, amazing. You mentioned P. Diddy, there's Weinstein, there's Epstein, and they're all part of the same end of the donkey. It was the system set up, and there's all this distract. And there's Jay-Z and Beyonce and Taylor Swift and all the witchery, and the hoodwinking. And now, people like Gloria and Rachel and Cathy, they were raised to witness these ridiculous pantomimes everywhere. I'm sure they can all see straight through it. But now the humanity is awakening and seeing, and they're taking down Diddy, like he's never coming out, and there'll be more, but they'll try and keep it hidden because they want you to go this way, but not look here, not look here, because the hidden hand, the hidden ones are always behind the scenes. But you see, they fail too. They're still sitting somewhat confident that their names won't be put in the hat with every other dark one that's going to be called and held accountable for their harms and crimes against humanity. The children, in particular, even those that are now adults, they assume that they will still get away with it because of the retardo one seldom even. Now, people get triggered by the way I talk about them, but I do it on purpose because I really want people to understand you do not need to respect what you are told is authority. And when you let yourself land that truth in here, it frees up. It frees you up. Cathy, what do you say to that?
I love hearing you express like that. You always do it so eloquently. I think it's exciting seeing people waking up and the layers of awareness that are happening as a result. And as people are realizing how this corruption has penetrated the most sacred aspects of society and really all aspects of society, we realized we got a long way to go to clean this system up. And children can't wait for that. These children need us to wake up, face reality now, and help them now. When we look through eyes of love and compassion and recognize what in the world is going on, we're moved to take action. It's people helping people now. This structure that has been corrupted, this structure that has been government globally structured isn't working. And it's not helping the children. It's hurt the children for so long. To clean that up is going to take far too long. We need to step over here, live life the way it's intended to, live it with love, grow our own food, get nutrition in our brains again, clean up our water, take care of our soil so that it can grow nutritious food, feed our brains, feed the children, give them a safe place to be. And we're all going to be able to start healing at this point. I'm seeing a mass movement here in the United States. It's so encouraging. They're not waiting for this system to clean up. People are taking action. They're opening the doors of the churches to help people again. They're going into the schools to make sure the children are taught how to think, or they're taking the children out and educating them themselves and showing them how to renourish the earth, how to grow their own. It's just a beautiful movement that's happening as people are taking back responsibility for their own lives. The government is not going to fix anything for us. Big government has done this to us. We can't wait on them anymore like we have been conditioned for so many generations. We've got this generational awakening happening where we're breaking the generational inherent knowledge, realizing that we've been misled outside ourselves for far too long. And people are breaking that cycle and thinking further. And it's this beautiful thing to see. As I'm seeing it, I'm realizing more and more that we need an opportunity to organize and structure a way to teach the teachers, heal the healers, because there's so many survivors that come out and they want to stop the abuse and help and heal others, and then they're not fully healed themselves, so they trigger, and then they have a hard time, and it's causing a cycle where all we need is just a minute over here to align with the divine and absolutely be able to be fully healed within ourselves to effectively start healing each other. So we need to heal the healers and teach the teachers and give them that one more piece of the puzzle, because the knowledge base has been just contained here for so long, and it's time that it expands so that we can help the children. They don't need us to tell them how to live their lives. They need to be free to develop that for themselves again. We need to be able to keep them in a safe environment and get them some good nutrition, and do that for ourselves, because we're all, those children inside, and we all need healing. This whole planet needs healing after what it's been through. And we all need to understand what mind control is, because we evolve with the knowledge that's our defense against mind control, so that we can never be manipulated like this again, so that we can't be shut down to be compliant, so that we can contribute and live the wonder of life the way it's intended to be. So I'm seeing this huge movement happening. I am so excited every day to wake up and get to be part of it, and to be empowering people to effectively help these children rather than triggering them, especially those that have been ritually abused. When they're taken into a church and prayed that the demons won't get on them, but then the children, it's reinforcing the satanic programming in the child, like, oh yeah, Satan's got all the power. No, love has all the power. You have all the power. Just no, it doesn't need to be that way. So we need to stop triggering the children and reinforcing the programming with our own beliefs. And it's not that our beliefs are wrong. It's just that sometimes they don't need to be asserted until a child heals in enough to be able to grasp the magnitude of the beauty of it all. We can't give them the end answer before they take the first step. We've got to help the process all along. It's opportunities like this that allow for that, because look at the vastness of information that has come in here. All these pieces of the puzzle coming into place, showing the big picture, and even on the healing end, all the different things we can do, empowering the children with the hand signals. That has taken on global meaning. That is that spans all language, it spans all culture. It worked, it's working, and it's saving many, many children. Just that one little thing. So look at, as we all bring this to the table, what we can do. It's an amazing time to be alive, and it's an amazing time to be having conversations like this.
Yeah, indeed.
So beautiful. Rachel, what would you like to share?
Well, on the hand signal, one thing that I love the most about what Gloria is doing is the Freemasons use hand signals all the time, and she's turned it around on.
Yeah, exactly.
What a perfect way to invert it. Because of course they invert everything. They turn everything around. So yeah, kudos to you, darling. You're doing really well. We really are in a incredible paradigm shift at the moment. So astrologically, we were always going to have this time of truth. We're coming up to I've got a fascination with ley lines. I'm a very spiritual person. The ley lines are coming into something called permanent harmony time. A lot of these rituals used to be always portrayed on the harmonized. We're coming into a time where the ley lines will be permanently in harmony. They will not have specific dates where they can try and plug in this horrible, torturous, murderous frequency into the ley lines, they're trying to damp down any chance of us coming to a higher paradigm. That hasn't worked. We're coming into this higher paradigm, whether they like it or not. We're winning. We're basically winning. So we're coming into a time where I believe there will be an opportunity for children to be protected. And I think that people will find their voices a lot more easily as we come into that frequency as well. So there's a lot looking forward to. We've still got to stay vigilant. We still have to do what we need to do to bring this information out. But quite frankly, the earth is on our side. The energies are on our side. The frequency that we're in is on our side. These dark beings that are puppeted, the puppets that puppet them, won't be able to operate as well in this frequency. So we've just got to basically do everything we can to just bring it about as quickly as possible.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Gloria.
I love the fact that Cathy, you're seeing the global hand sign everywhere, and that Rachel, you've picked up on what I did, because that was a little bit of a covert thing for me, because these hand signs and mind control was all done through that. But so thank you for noticing that. But yeah, look, it is great. I'm so honoured. I feel so humbled to be able to bring that to the world. And you know what? Kids are being saved. And I do hear stories of children over in the States and in New Zealand who signalled to a teacher or a parent and got saved. So isn't that beautiful? And that's kind of my big passion. But you know, it's interesting because for years and years, survivors like ourselves and others have just been shut down, and that whole inversion thing has occurred where we are the bad ones, the wrong ones, the minimized, the evil, the mentally unwell, you know, the whole Darvo impact, deny, attack, reverse the order of victim and offender. Every survivor knows this well. And so I think it's amazing that actually, it's not happening like that anymore. We're turning it on its head, and we're doing it with grace and love and humility. So I thank you, Danny, for bringing this together.
Oh, my honor. You know, the blessing for me truly is knowing each and every one of you and your special and your journey, and how important it is that you are these beacons in all these different countries. Gloria Masters, New Zealand; Rachel Vaughn, Australia; Cathy O'Brien, America; Chantelle Meyburgh, South Africa; and me, Danny Henderson, England. You know, and we all have a love and a passion for humanity, for the children, for their healing, and we are seeing it, and we all deliver it in our different ways. And I'm certainly not going to change, and I know you girls won't change, because we don't do this for audience, we don't do this for clout. We do it for the children, for the inner child in each person, and for the raising of love on our planet as we take this planet back. Ladies, I hand the floor to you for final words to the beautiful people that will see this.
Thank you for this wonderful opportunity, Danny. This has just been delightful. And I just encourage everyone to know that it's within us all to heal. And as we heal, there's more than just dealing with past trauma. We need to remember how to embrace that inner child and live the love we are and enjoy every day with gratitude and unity, reaching out to each other. It's a beautiful way to live, and that's a major part of healing too.
Rachel.
So I just want to remind people, do not get caught up in the fear porn. That is all they have left, is to try and keep us in a low frequency. Try every day to find your joy. I love what Cathy was saying about going out in nature. Find your joy each day, because every time you feel joy, and this is not to ignore what's going on in the world, we all have to be vigilant still. But if you find joy in moments every day, you are lifting the frequency. Your existence is a frequency beacon, and it's contagious. It'll head out and help other people as well. So just keep in frequency of joy, in love, and that will make a massive difference.
Thank you, beautiful. Gloria Masters.
A couple of things. So I believe we are here to experience joy, and that's why we're here. So if we can find it in those moments, I love that. Equally, children will only ever speak out for one reason, and that is for the abuse to stop. So if you are ever if you're ever in the company of a child who shares, be eternally grateful, because they're trusting you to do so. They don't make this up. How could they? Secondly, if you yourself are a survivor, I just want you to know I see you, I stand beside you, and I believe you always.
Shanti, the great co-host of this wonderful, beautiful podcast.
Well, it's as I think with everyone, I really love being here. So thank you so much. It's kind of midnight for me here. As you can see, I look a bit pale, but I'm very happy to be here. And thank you so much, ladies, for again sharing your stories. And yeah, just, spreading the bravery around the world. And thank you for each and every one of you for what you do. And Danny, thank you for putting this together for us today as well.
My honor, truly my honor. And I know that people watching, some may have never known who you all are. And that's all right, because we just have to keep going and delivering and never assume that everyone knows who we are or our story. Because as we know, when we speak our truth, when we share our experiences, other healings always happen. We allow in some way people to think, that happened to me too, or something similar happened, and there's a way for me to heal. And Cathy O'Brien, I have to say to you, the way that you are able to hold joy and love and overcome everything that you have endured is absolutely mind-blowing. And I know that Rachel and Gloria have, gone through their experiences, but I know they feel the same way about you too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So guys out there, thank you for watching. Thank you for being part of Gloria Masters in New Zealand, Rachel Vaughan in Australia, Cathy O'Brien in America, Chantelle Meyburgh in South Africa, and me, Danny Henderson in England. Sending you love from my heart to yours. And things are getting better, guys. They are getting better. Be the love you are, as Cathy O'Brien always says. We came here to be the love that we are. So let's all come together, support each other, and keep on moving forward. I love you all.